You've been chosen to create the most important wedding dress of the decade, Meredith. The words still echoed in Meredith Castellano's mind as she looked through the window of her New York atelier 2 days earlier. Chosen. Among hundreds of renowned designers, the Ashford family had chosen her. Her heart had raced when Victoria, her assistant, rushed in with the news. A private jet, a week at the Ashford mansion in Connecticut, a 6-figure contract. But something didn't fit. Why her? Meredith was good, excellent even. But the Ashfords were American corporate royalty. They could have any designer in the world. "Are you sure about this?" she had asked Victoria, holding the sealed envelope with the Ashford crest. "Absolutely. The jet takes off in 48 hours. Now, sitting in the luxurious leather seat of the private jet, Meredith Castellano held her coffee cup with both hands, trying to control the trembling. The news she'd received 15 minutes ago, still at the airport, had changed everything. Her atelier was being evicted, 3 months behind on rent, and the landlord had finally lost patience. Victoria had called in tears. "They locked the doors, Mir. Everything's inside. Your designs, your fabrics, everything." This wasn't just a prestigious job. It was her salvation. It was the difference between rebuilding her empire or losing a decade of work. The value of that contract would pay her debts and give her a fresh start. But Meredith wouldn't know, until she stepped into the Ashford mansion, that she was entering something much bigger than a simple wedding. The jet began its descent, and through the window she saw the property. A majestic stone mansion surrounded by endless gardens. It looked like a European castle transplanted onto American soil. "Miss Castellano," the flight attendant smiled politely. "Welcome to your challenge." Challenge. The word made something freeze inside her. When the jet doors opened, a gust of cold October wind greeted her. At the bottom of the stairs, a tall man in an impeccable suit waited. But it wasn't him who held her attention. Behind him, on the marble stairs of the mansion, 2 figures watched. A stunning blonde woman in a blood-red dress, arms crossed, gaze sharp as a blade. Beside her, an older woman, elegant and icy, with a pearl necklace and an expression of disapproval already formed. And then Meredith saw him. At the top of the stairs, slightly apart from the 2 women, stood a man with dark hair and eyes that, even from a distance, seemed to carry the weight of the world. He wore a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, hands in his pockets, and when their gazes met, Meredith felt the air escape from her lungs. That must be the groom. Tristan Ashford. The heir to a billionaire empire, trapped in an arranged marriage. And for the first time in years, Meredith Castellano felt something beyond financial desperation. She felt danger. The man in the impeccable suit extended his hand. "Miss Castellano, I'm James, the estate manager. Welcome to Ashford Manor." Meredith shook his hand, but her eyes kept drifting to the trio at the top of the stairs. The blonde woman's smile was all teeth and no warmth. "Let me help you with your luggage," James said, gesturing to her single carry-on and garment bag. "The family is eager to meet you." Eager wasn't the word Meredith would have chosen, based on those stairs. As they climbed the marble steps, the blonde woman descended to meet them halfway, her heels clicking with purpose. Up close, she was even more striking and more intimidating. Diamond earrings caught the afternoon light, and her perfume arrived 3 seconds before she did. "So you're the designer?" Her voice dripped with skepticism. She circled Meredith like a predator assessing prey, taking in her simple black blazer, jeans, and boots. "I expected someone more established." "Scarlett, please," the dark-haired man, Tristan, said, finally descending the stairs. His voice was deep, controlled, with an edge of exhaustion. "Miss Castellano just arrived. And I'm simply making sure we haven't made a terrible mistake, darling." Scarlett's hand possessively found Tristan's arm. "This is our wedding. Everything must be perfect." The older woman glided down with the grace of a swan and the warmth of an iceberg. I am Vivienne Ashford, Tristan's stepmother. We have very specific expectations, Miss Castellano. I understand, Mrs. Ashford. You understand nothing yet, Vivienne interrupted, her smile razor-thin. The Ashford name has standards. We didn't bring you here on a whim. Then why did you bring me? Meredith asked, her New York directness overriding her nerves. No offense, but I'm sure you have your pick of designers. Silence fell like a curtain. Scarlett's eyes narrowed. Vivienne's expression hardened. But Tristan laughed, a genuine, surprised sound that seemed to startle everyone, including himself. I like her already, he said, his gray eyes meeting Meredith's with something that looked like relief. Someone who actually asks questions instead of just nodding and agreeing. Tristan, Vivienne's voice could have frozen fire. Why don't you show Miss Castellano to her quarters while we prepare for dinner? You can explain the situation. It wasn't a suggestion. The walk through the mansion was silent except for their footsteps echoing off marble floors. Meredith tried not to gawk at the oil paintings, the crystal chandeliers, the casual display of wealth that probably cost more than her entire life savings. I apologize for that reception, Tristan finally said as they reached a long hallway in the East Wing. Scarlett and Vivienne can be protective of the family image. Is that what you call it? The words escaped before Meredith could stop them. He stopped walking and turned to face her. Up close, he was even more striking, sharp jawline, tired eyes, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile until 5 minutes ago. You want the truth, Miss Castellano? Meredith, and yes, I'd prefer it. My father died 6 months ago. His will contained certain conditions for my inheritance. One of them was marrying within a year to ensure family stability and continuation of the Ashford legacy. His voice was flat, reciting facts. Vivienne, my stepmother, arranged my engagement to Scarlett Devereux 3 weeks later. The wedding is in 2 months. That's medieval, Meredith breathed. That's business. Tristan's smile was bitter. Scarlett's father owns the second largest tech company in the country. The merger will be beneficial. And what you want doesn't matter. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, pain, maybe hope. What I want hasn't mattered for a very long time. They stood there in the hallway, the late afternoon sun streaming through tall windows, two strangers sharing truths they probably shouldn't. Why me? Meredith asked again, softer this time. Really? Tristan reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, showing her a magazine cover. It was from 2 years ago, Meredith's breakthrough moment, a dress she'd designed for an indie film actress at the Oscars. Bold, unconventional, absolutely not what anyone expected. I saw this and thought, here's someone who doesn't follow the rules everyone else does. He pocketed the phone. Scarlett wanted Marchetti or Laurent. Predictable, safe, boring. I insisted on you. You? Meredith's eyebrows shot up. The groom chose the designer? I may be trapped, Miss Castellano, but I'm not completely powerless. Not yet. His gray eyes held hers. I wanted at least one thing about this wedding to be interesting. Before Meredith could respond, a door down the hall flew open, and Scarlett emerged, her expression stormy. There you are. Tristan, your mother needs you in the study. Now. She turned to Meredith with a smile that could cut glass. And you, designer, should know something. I have very specific ideas about my dress. You're here to execute them, not to create. Do we understand each other? Crystal clear, Meredith replied, matching her smile. As Scarlett pulled Tristan away, he glanced back once, and Meredith saw it clearly. A man drowning, reaching for air. And she, with her eviction notice and her desperate need for this money, had just jumped into the water with him. Meredith's room was larger than her entire New York apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the estate gardens, a 4-poster bed dominated the space, and the bathroom had a tub she could practically swim in. Under different circumstances, she might have enjoyed it. Instead, She unpacked her measuring tape and sketch pad, her phone buzzing with another message from Victoria. Landlord won't budge. We have until Friday to clear everything out. I'm so sorry, Mayor. Friday. 3 days away. If she could just get the initial deposit from this contract, she could save her equipment, her fabrics, her designs. Everything else was replaceable. She had to make this work, no matter what. A knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. A young maid smiled nervously. Miss Castellano, dinner is served in 30 minutes. Mrs. Ashford requests semi-formal attire. Of course she did. The dining room could have hosted a state dinner. A chandelier dripping with crystals hung over a table set for 5. Vivian sat at the head in a navy dress that probably cost more than a car. Scarlett to her right in emerald silk, and an empty seat beside her clearly meant for Tristan. Miss Castellano? Vivian gestured to the chair at the far end, nearly a football field away. Please, sit. The distance was deliberate, a reminder of her place. Meredith had barely settled when Tristan entered, now in a dark suit, hair slightly damp from a shower. He paused at his designated seat beside Scarlett, then deliberately walked to the end of the table and pulled out the chair next to Meredith. I think I'll sit here tonight. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Tristan, Vivian's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Your place is beside your fiancé. My place, he said calmly, sitting down anyway, is wherever I choose to sit in my own home. Scarlett's laugh was forced. Darling, don't be difficult. We need to discuss the wedding timeline. Then discuss it. I can hear perfectly fine from here. A fifth person entered, a man in his 60s, distinguished, with kind eyes and an amused expression. Am I interrupting a coup? Uncle Richard, Tristan's voice warmed. Meet Meredith Castellano, our designer. Meredith, this is Richard Ashford, my father's brother and the only sane person in this house. Richard chuckled, taking the seat across from them. High praise. Welcome, Miss Castellano. I hope they haven't scared you off yet. The night's still young, Meredith replied, earning another genuine laugh from Tristan and a sharp look from Vivian. Dinner was served. Course after course of food, Meredith was too nervous to taste. The conversation was a carefully choreographed battle. So, Miss Castellano, Vivian began, her wineglass catching the light. Tell us about your most prestigious clients. It was a trap. Meredith's client list was respectable but not elite. Not Ashford level. I've worked with several independent designers and film studios, she said carefully. My focus has been on creating unique pieces rather than following trends. How quaint, Scarlett purred. I, of course, have worn Marchetti, Laurent, and Valentino. I know what true luxury looks like. Then you'll appreciate what Meredith can create, Tristan interjected smoothly. Something original instead of another copycat gown. Scarlett's smile became predatory. Actually, I have the design already picked out. She pulled out her phone, showing a photo of a massive, crystal-encrusted ball gown. This, exactly this. I want to look like a princess. Meredith studied the image. It was beautiful in a generic, over-the-top way. It was also completely wrong for Scarlett's frame and would cost a fortune in materials alone. That's a stunning dress, Meredith said diplomatically. But I think we could create something even more flattering. I don't want flattering. I want this. Scarlett's voice sharpened. You're here to sew, not to think. Scarlett, Richard said gently, perhaps we should let the professional. The professional will do what she's paid to do, Vivian interrupted. Miss Castellano, I trust you understand the importance of pleasing your client. Meredith felt Tristan tense beside her. This was the moment. She could nod, agree, be compliant, ensure her paycheck and save her studio, or she could be honest. With all due respect, Mrs. Ashford, if you wanted someone to simply execute orders, you could have hired any seamstress. You brought me here. She looked at Tristan. Because someone believed I could create something extraordinary. But I can only do that if I'm allowed to actually design. The silence was deafening. Then Tristan started clapping, slow, deliberate applause. "Excellent point." "This is ridiculous," Scarlett stood abruptly. "Vivian, I told you this was a mistake. She's completely inappropriate." "Sit down, Scarlett." Tristan's voice carried an authority Meredith hadn't heard before. "Meredith is right. If you just want that dress copied, hire a tailor. But if you want something worthy of an Ashford wedding, let her work." "How dare you?" "I dare because it's my wedding, too." Tristan stood now, facing his fiancée. "And I'm tired of having every decision made for me." Vivienne rose, her face a mask of controlled fury. "Tristan, a word. In private. Now." As Vivienne swept from the room, Tristan followed, but not before leaning close to Meredith and whispering, "Don't back down, please." Then she was alone with Scarlett, who looked at her with undisguised hatred. "You think you're clever, don't you?" Scarlett's voice was venomous. "Let me make something very clear, Miss Castellano. Tristan may be momentarily amused by your little act of defiance, but I will be his wife. I will be the mistress of this house. And you?" She smiled. "You're just the help. Remember your place, or I'll make sure you regret ever stepping foot in this mansion." With that, she stormed out, leaving Meredith alone with Richard, who sighed deeply. "Welcome to the Ashford family," he said with dark humor. "I'd offer you an escape route, but something tells me you're not the running type." Meredith thought of her locked atelier, her looming debts, and Tristan's eyes pleading with her not to back down. "No," she said quietly, "I'm not." But as she sat in that enormous dining room, she wondered what she'd just gotten herself into, and whether she'd survive it. Meredith couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m. she found herself wandering the mansion's hallways in her pajamas and cardigan, trying to process the disaster that had been dinner. She'd essentially declared war on her client and host family on her first night. Brilliant strategy for someone who desperately needed this job. Her phone buzzed. "Victoria. Working late. Managed to negotiate until Monday. That's all I could get. How's it going there?" "Complicated," Meredith typed back. That was the understatement of the year. She found herself in what appeared to be a library. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, leather chairs, a fireplace with embers still glowing. She was reaching for a book when a voice startled her. Couldn't sleep either. Tristan emerged from a wingback chair she'd thought was empty, a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. He'd changed into jeans and a gray Henley, looking more human and less like an oil painting. "I'm sorry," Meredith said. "I didn't mean to intrude." "You're not. This is the only room in the house where I can actually think." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Join me?" She should decline. Should go back to her room. Should maintain professional boundaries. She sat down. "That was quite a performance at dinner," Tristan said, a hint of amusement in his tired eyes. "I don't think anyone's challenged Vivian like that in years. I probably just got myself fired." "On the contrary, you did exactly what I hoped you'd do." He took a sip of his drink. "Stand your ground. Everyone else just bows and scrapes." "Even you?" The question escaped before Meredith could stop it. His smile was bitter. "Especially me. I've been bowing for so long I forgot what it feels like to stand straight." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the fire crackling softly. "Can I ask you something?" Meredith said. "If you hate this so much, the arranged marriage, the control, why go through with it?" Tristan stared into his glass. "Because my father built an empire that employs 15,000 people. Because if I don't marry Scarlett, the merger falls through, the stock plummets, and thousands of those people lose their jobs. Because apparently, I'm responsible for everyone's livelihood except my own happiness. That's not fair." "No," he agreed quietly. "It's not, but it's reality. There has to be another way. If there is, I haven't found it. And believe me, I've looked." He set down his glass and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You know what the worst part is? Everyone assumes I should be grateful. grateful to inherit billions, grateful to marry a beautiful woman, grateful to live in this palace. He gestured at the opulent room. Like money makes up for freedom. Meredith understood more than he knew. I get it. Different situation, but I get it. Do you? My studio is being evicted. Everything I've worked for is locked behind doors I can't open. I took this job because I'm drowning in debt, and this contract is the only thing that can save me. She laughed without humor. So here I am, dependent on the approval of people who already hate me, creating a dress for a wedding I think is wrong. We're both trapped, just different cages. Tristan looked at her with something like wonder. You're remarkably honest. I'm too tired to be anything else. He stood, walked to a cabinet, and poured a second glass of whiskey. Here, if we're having a midnight confession session, you need this. Meredith accepted it, the crystal heavy in her hand. This probably costs more than my rent. The glass or the whiskey? Both. They laughed, real, genuine laughter that felt rebellious in the hushed mansion. Tell me something, Tristan said, settling back into his chair. That dress you designed, the one that was on the magazine cover, the actress said you fought her entire team to make it the way you envisioned. True? Very true. They wanted safe. I gave them unforgettable. Meredith smiled at the memory. It nearly ended my career, but it was worth it. That's why I chose you. His gray eyes held hers. Because you're willing to fight for what you believe in, even when it costs you something. I'm starting to think that's a character flaw. Or maybe it's the only thing that makes us human in a world trying to turn us into chess pieces. The vulnerability in his voice made Meredith's chest tighten. This wasn't the billionaire heir. This was just a man, exhausted and alone, trapped in a life he never wanted. Can I ask you something personal? She said softly. At this point, why not? Do you love her? Scarlett. Tristan was quiet for so long, Meredith thought she'd overstepped. Then, I barely know her. We've spent maybe 20 hours together total. Vivian arranged everything and Scarlett agreed because she wants the Ashford name and access to the family fortune. It's a transaction. Love doesn't factor into it. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Welcome to my life. He ran a hand through his dark hair. Sometimes I lie awake wondering what it would be like to choose. To actually want to marry someone because they make you laugh. Or they challenge you. Or you can't imagine life without them. He looked at her. Pathetic, right? Human, Meredith corrected. That's human. They stared at each other across the firelight, and something shifted in the air between them. Something dangerous and electric that neither of them could name. Tristan cleared his throat and stood abruptly. It's late. We should both try to sleep. Right. Yes. Meredith stood too quickly, the whiskey making her slightly unsteady. He reached out to steady her, his hand on her elbow, and they were suddenly very close. Close enough that she could see the flecks of blue in his gray eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. Meredith, he said, his voice rough, I need you to know something. Whatever happens with Scarlett and Vivian, whatever games they play, I want you to stay. Not because of the wedding, because... He trailed off, seeming to struggle with words. Because I feel more like myself in 5 hours with you than I have in 5 months with everyone else. Before she could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. They sprang apart like guilty teenagers. Vivienne appeared in the doorway, her silk robe immaculate even at this hour. Her eyes took in the scene, the two glasses, the intimate distance they'd just created, the flush on Meredith's cheeks. How cozy, she said, ice dripping from every word. Tristan, we need to discuss your behavior at dinner. Miss Castellano, I suggest you remember why you're here. You're not a guest. You're an employee. Good night, Vivienne, Tristan said, his voice cold and controlled again, the air, not the man. As Meredith fled to her room, her heart pounding, she knew everything had just become impossibly complicated. She was falling for a man she couldn't have, who was engaged to a woman who wanted to destroy her, in a house run by a woman who saw her as a threat, and she still had to design a wedding dress. Morning arrived with a knock and a breakfast tray delivered by the same nervous maid. "Mrs. Ashford requests your presence in the East Parlor at 10 o'clock for the first fitting consultation." Meredith checked her phone. 8:47 a.m. She had 73 minutes to become a professional again and forget how Tristan's hand had felt on her arm, how his voice had sounded when he said her name. She failed spectacularly. By 9:55, she'd arranged her sketches, measuring tape and fabric samples in the East Parlor, a sun-drenched room with uncomfortable antique furniture clearly chosen for looks over comfort. She was reviewing her preliminary designs when Scarlett swept in, 15 minutes late, Vivian at her side like a general with her lieutenant. "Well?" Scarlett demanded, not bothering with pleasantries. "Show me what you have." Meredith spread out 3 different concept sketches, each elegant, each unique, each designed to actually flatter Scarlett's figure rather than overwhelm it. Scarlett barely glanced at them. "These are nothing like what I showed you." "Because what you showed me would make you look like a cupcake with legs," Meredith said, before her brain could engage her filter. "These designs will make you look like a queen." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "Miss Castellano, your arrogance is astounding." "It's not arrogance, it's expertise." Meredith held her ground, remembering Tristan's whispered plea, "Don't back down." "You hired me to create something beautiful. That's what I'm doing." "We hired you to follow instructions," Scarlett snapped. She picked up one sketch and tore it in half. "Try again. And this time, listen." The door opened and Tristan entered, Richard behind him. "What's going on?" "Your designer is being difficult," Vivian said smoothly. "Your fiancé is being impossible," Meredith countered, shocking herself. Tristan picked up the torn sketch, piecing it together. His jaw tightened. "This is beautiful." "Scarlett, why would you?" "Because it's not what I want." Scarlett's composure cracked. "This is my wedding, Tristan. Mine. And everyone keeps acting like I should just accept whatever scraps they throw at me." For a moment, something almost human flickered in her eyes. Genuine hurt, maybe even vulnerability. "Then tell me what you actually want," Meredith said more gently. "Not what a magazine shows you. What makes you feel beautiful?" Scarlett stared at her, caught off guard. Then her walls slammed back up. "I want what I want. Figure it out. That's what we're paying you for." She stormed out, leaving Vivian to deliver a cold smile. "You have until Friday to produce acceptable designs, Miss Castellano, or we'll find someone who can follow simple directions." She glided out, victory in every step. Richard whistled low. "Well, that went well." "I'm sorry," Tristan said to Meredith. "I'll talk to them." "Don't." Meredith was already gathering her torn sketches. "I can handle it." "Can you?" His concern felt genuine. "Because they're going to make this as difficult as possible." "Then it's a good thing I'm stubborn." She met his eyes and tried to ignore the flutter in her chest. "I need to start over. Do you have somewhere I can work? Somewhere quieter?" "The garden studio," Richard suggested. "It's where Tristan's mother used to paint. Nobody goes there anymore." The garden studio was perfect, a small glass conservatory filled with afternoon light and the smell of jasmine from the vines outside. Ancient easels stood in corners, and paint-stained tables held decades of dust. Meredith was sketching her 4th attempt when she heard footsteps on the stone path. Tristan appeared with 2 sandwiches and coffee. "I figured you'd forget to eat." "You figured right." She accepted the food gratefully. "Shouldn't you be somewhere doing billionaire things?" "I canceled my meetings." He settled onto a dusty stool. "Figured you could use an ally." "Or you're avoiding your fiancé." "That too." His smile was self-deprecating. He watched her sketch for a moment. "Can I ask why you're really doing this?" "The truth, not the professional answer." Meredith's pencil paused. "I told you. I need the money. There's more." I can see it. She sighed, setting down her pencil. When I was 16, my mom got sick. Cancer. We couldn't afford treatment. Couldn't afford anything. I watched her fade away because we didn't have enough money. Her voice stayed steady through sheer will. I promised myself I'd never be that powerless again, that I'd build something that couldn't be taken away, and I did. For 10 years I built it. And now it's being taken away, Tristan said softly. So yes, I need this job. Desperately. But I also... She looked at him. I also can't bring myself to create something ugly just because someone demands it, even if it costs me everything. My mom taught me that much. Don't compromise who you are for anyone. Tristan was quiet for a long moment. Then, she sounds like she was an incredible woman. She was. Meredith's throat tightened. She would have liked you, actually. She always said the measure of a person isn't what they have, but what they do when they have a choice. And what choice am I making? The question was almost a plea. Before Meredith could answer, her phone rang. Victoria, I have to take this. She walked to the far corner of the studio. Vic? Mare, we have a problem, a big one. Victoria's voice was panicked. Someone called the bank. They're demanding immediate payment on your business loan, all of it, $50,000, by Friday, or they're seizing your assets. The room spun. What? They can't. We have payment terms. Someone pulled strings. The bank won't say who, but Mare, this isn't normal. Someone wants to destroy you. Meredith's eyes found Tristan across the studio, and cold realization washed over her. She'd made enemies in this house. Powerful enemies. I'll figure something out, she whispered, and hung up. Bad news? Tristan asked. Just complications. She couldn't tell him, couldn't show weakness. Not now. But Tristan stood and crossed to her, and his proximity made her breath catch. Meredith. Whatever it is. Miss Castellano! A maid rushed in, breathless. Mrs. Ashford needs you immediately. There's been an incident with your room. They ran back to the mansion. Meredith's door stood open, and inside was chaos. Her clothes scattered, her sketches torn, her fabric samples shredded. And on the mirror, written in red lipstick, Know your place. Scarlett stood in the hallway, her expression carefully neutral. Oh my God, what happened? This is terrible. But Meredith saw it in her eyes, satisfaction. Victory. Tristan's voice was deadly quiet. Scarlett, did you do this? How dare you accuse me? But her protest was too quick, too rehearsed. As mansion staff rushed to clean the disaster, Meredith felt everything crashing down. Her studio gone, her loan called in, her work destroyed, and the contract she desperately needed slipping through her fingers. Tristan touched her shoulder gently. We'll fix this, I promise. But Meredith knew some things couldn't be fixed, and she was running out of time. Tristan had Meredith move to a different wing, his wing, over Vivian's vociferous objections. For her safety, he'd said, his tone brooking no argument. The new room was directly across from his, and the message was clear. Touch her again, and you go through me. But safety couldn't restore destroyed fabric or torn sketches. 3 days of work, gone. Meredith sat on her new bed at midnight, surrounded by what little she'd salvaged, doing math that didn't add up. The deposit from this contract would arrive after Friday, after the bank's deadline, after everything she'd built turned to ash. A soft knock made her look up. Tristan stood in the doorway, still dressed, exhaustion carved into his features. Can't sleep either? He asked. Sleep seems like a luxury I can't afford right now. He entered, closing the door quietly, improper, dangerous, and neither of them cared. He sat on the floor beside her bed, back against the wall. Talk to me, the real problem, not the destroyed room. Meredith had spent a lifetime being strong, being independent, never asking for help. But something about Tristan's presence, his own trapped helplessness maybe, made her walls crumble. I'm losing everything, she whispered. My studio, my work, 10 years of my life, and I can't stop it. Someone called in my loan. I have until Friday to pay $50,000 I don't have. Tristan's jaw tightened. Let me… No. The word came out sharper than intended. I didn't tell you so you'd fix it. I told you because I'm tired of pretending I'm not drowning. So we're both drowning. His smile was sad. At least we have company. They sat in silence, and Meredith felt the weight of their impossible situation pressing down. Then Tristan spoke, his voice barely audible. I looked into your loan, called some contacts at the bank. He turned to face her. It was Vivian. She made the call, pulled strings to accelerate the payment. Meredith's blood ran cold. Why? What did I do to her? You made me smile. Tristan's eyes held hers. At dinner, in the library, in the studio, you made me remember what it feels like to want something, and Vivian can't control what I want, so she's eliminating the distraction. I'm not a distraction. I'm a person. I know. That's what terrifies them. He stood, began pacing. Scarlett wants the Ashford name and money. Vivian wants to control the empire through me. But you want nothing from me except honest conversation. That makes you dangerous. So they're destroying my life because you talked to me? The injustice of it burned. Welcome to my world. Everyone around me is a pawn or a player. Nobody's just real. He stopped pacing, looked at her with raw honesty. Except you. You're the first real thing I've encountered in years. The air between them charged with electricity. Meredith stood, and they were close. Too close, not close enough. Tristan, we can't… I know. But he didn't step back. You're here for a job. I'm engaged. This is impossible. Completely impossible. Neither of them moved. I could pay your loan, he said quietly. Transfer the money tonight. Save your studio. I already said no. Why? Pride? Survival. Meredith's voice cracked. Because if I let you save me, I become what they think I am. Some gold digger using you. And I can't. I won't be that person, even if it costs me everything. Tristan reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away. His hand cupped her cheek, and Meredith's breath stopped. You're remarkable. You know that? I'm stubborn and broke and in way over my head. Remarkable, he repeated, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. They stood frozen in that moment, both knowing they should step apart, neither willing to break the connection. The door burst open. Scarlett stood there, backlit by the hallway, her expression transforming from shock to fury to calculation in seconds. Behind her, Vivian appeared, satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. Well, Scarlett's voice could have cut diamonds. This explains everything. Tristan dropped his hand but didn't move away from Meredith. It's not what you think. Really? Because it looks like my fiancé is having a midnight rendezvous with the help. Don't call her that. Tristan's voice went dangerous. Why not? That's what she is. Scarlett turned to Vivian. I want her gone. Tonight. Call security. Wait. Meredith found her voice, stepped forward. You want to fire me? Fine. But I need to know something first. She looked directly at Vivian. Why? Why destroy my loan, my studio, my life? What did I actually do to you? Vivian's smile was ice. You think you're the first ambitious little nobody to waltz in here and try to seduce the Ashford heir? I've destroyed a dozen just like you. You're not special, Miss Castellano. You're predictable. She's not… Tristan started, but Meredith cut him off. You're right. I'm not special. I'm just someone trying to survive. She looked at Scarlett. And you? You don't even want him. You want what he represents. So why do you care if we talk? Because he's mine, Scarlett snapped, her composure fracturing. The wedding, the merger, the position. I've worked too hard to let some designer ruin it. Then we're the same, Meredith said quietly, both using him for what we need. At least I'm honest about it." The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Tristan's face went carefully blank. "I see. Thank you for the clarity." He turned to Vivian. "Pay her in full. Tonight. She's done here." "Tristan!" Meredith started, but the look he gave her stopped her cold. "You're right. You're honest. I appreciate that." His voice was cordial, distant, the voice of a stranger. "James will arrange your transportation. The contract will be fulfilled. Thank you for your time, Miss Castellano." He walked out, leaving Meredith standing in the wreckage of whatever had been building between them. Vivian's smile was victorious. "Pack your things. The car leaves in an hour." When they were alone, Scarlett leaned close. "You almost had me worried. But you're just like everyone else, here for the money. At least I have the decency not to pretend otherwise." After she left, Meredith sank onto the bed, her hands shaking. She'd won. She was getting paid, could save her studio. But the look in Tristan's eyes when she'd called herself a user, when she'd reduced their connection to transaction, she'd saved herself by destroying the one real thing she'd found in years. Her phone buzzed. An email notification. Payment received, $125,000, more than the contract specified, enough to save everything, and somehow it felt like losing. 2 weeks later, Meredith stood in her restored studio, surrounded by salvaged fabric and new equipment. The landlord had been paid. The bank was satisfied. Her business was saved. She felt hollow. Victoria watched her with concern. "Mur, you've been staring at that blank canvas for 20 minutes. Are you okay?" "Fine," Meredith lied. She hadn't been fine since the car pulled away from Ashford Manor, since she'd watched the mansion disappear in the rearview mirror, since she'd sacrificed something real for something practical. Her phone buzzed, another news alert. The Ashford-Devereux wedding was in 3 days, and the media was obsessed. Photos of Scarlett in various designer boutiques, speculation about her dress, interviews with Vivian about the wedding of the decade. No mentions of Tristan. He'd disappeared from public view entirely. "You should call him," Victoria said gently. "And say what? Sorry I reduced our connection to a transaction, but I was panicking?" Meredith shook her head. "He's marrying someone else in 72 hours. It's over." "Is it? Because you look like someone at a funeral." The studio door chimed. A delivery man with an enormous bouquet of white roses. "Meredith Castellano?" "That's me." He handed her the flowers and left. No card. But Meredith knew. Expensive, elegant, impersonal. This was Vivian's style. A reminder that she'd won. Except when Meredith moved the roses, she found it. A small envelope, hidden in the greenery. Inside, a note in masculine handwriting. "Library. Midnight. If you want the truth. R.R. Richard." She shouldn't go. She should let this die. But at 11:47 p.m., Meredith found herself in an Uber heading to Manhattan's Upper East Side, to the private club where Richard had specified they meet. He was waiting in a leather chair, 2 glasses of whiskey ready. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I wasn't sure either." Meredith sat. "What truth, Richard?" "The truth about my nephew." Richard's kind eyes were sad. "He's miserable. Hasn't slept, barely eats. Goes through the motions of wedding planning like a man walking to his execution. He made his choice." "Did he? Or did you make it for him?" Richard leaned forward. "Meredith, I've watched Tristan his entire life. Watched him carry burdens no one should carry, sacrifice his happiness for duty, become less himself every year. And then you arrived, and for the first time in a decade, I saw him breathe. Richard, let me finish." His voice was firm but gentle. "That night in your room, he wasn't there to seduce you. He was there because you're the only person who sees him as human, instead of a commodity. And when you called yourself a user, when you reduced what you two had to transaction, you broke something in him." Guilt crashed through Meredith. "I was trying to protect myself. Vivian destroyed my business. Scarlett destroyed my work. I said what I needed to say to survive. I know, and so does Tristan, deep down. But he's so used to people using him that he believes it, believes he's only worth what he can provide. Richard slid an envelope across the table. This is why I asked you here. Inside were documents, financial records, emails, legal papers. Meredith scanned them, her blood running cold. The merger with Devereaux Tech was a sham. The company was billions in debt, cooking books, weeks from collapse. Scarlett and Vivian knew. They were using the Ashford name and fortune to save themselves, with Tristan as the sacrificial lamb. Oh my God. Vivian's been planning this since my brother died. She gets control of the company through Tristan, merges with Devereaux, uses Ashford money to cover their debts. Then when everything crashes, she and Scarlett walk away wealthy while Tristan takes the fall. Richard's voice was bitter. My nephew is marrying into a trap. Does he know? I tried to tell him. He won't listen. Says it doesn't matter. The merger will save jobs regardless. Richard met her eyes. But you know what I think? I think he's given up. Without you, without something real to fight for, he's decided this is what he deserves. Meredith's hands shook. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the only person who can reach him, the only person who made him want to fight. Richard stood. The wedding is Saturday at 3 p.m. I can get you in. But you need to decide. Are you going to let him destroy himself? Or are you going to fight for him? He doesn't want me. I hurt him. Then apologize. Grovel. Do whatever it takes. Richard's voice softened. Meredith, I've watched people spend their lives being practical, choosing safety over passion. And you know what? They always regret it. Don't be practical. Be brave. After Richard left, Meredith sat alone with the documents and her thoughts. She thought about her mother, dying because they couldn't afford care. About building her business to never be powerless again. About choosing safety over risk, always. And she thought about Tristan's eyes in the library at midnight, about real conversations and honest laughter, about feeling seen. Her phone rang. Victoria. Mer, you need to see this. She sent a link, a gossip site with a photo from tonight. Tristan leaving his office looking gaunt and exhausted, with the caption, "Groom gets cold feet, Ashford heir looks miserable, days before wedding." In the photo, Tristan looked exactly how Meredith felt, like someone who'd lost something irreplaceable. She'd spent her whole life fighting to survive. Maybe it was time to fight for something more. Meredith opened her phone and started making calls. To Victoria. I need a dress, something stunning. I have 48 hours. To her lawyer. I need to understand corporate fraud. To Richard. Get me into that wedding. I'm going to stop it. To herself. Don't be practical. Be brave. Saturday morning arrived with rain. Dramatic, cinematic, almost too perfect. Meredith stood outside the Cathedral of St. John, where Manhattan's elite were gathering for the wedding of the year. She wore midnight blue, her dark hair swept up, looking nothing like the desperate designer who'd arrived at Ashford Manor a month ago. She looked like someone with nothing left to lose. Richard met her at a side entrance. Last chance to back out. Not a chance. Good. He smiled. For what it's worth, my brother would have loved you. He always said Tristan needed someone who'd challenge him. Let's hope Tristan agrees. Inside, the cathedral was breathtaking. Thousands of white flowers, hundreds of guests. And at the altar, Tristan in a black tuxedo, looking like a prince in a fairy tale who'd forgotten his happy ending. When he saw Meredith slip into a back pew, his face went blank with shock. Then something else. Hope, maybe. Or fear. The music swelled. Scarlett appeared at the cathedral entrance in a dress that wasn't Meredith's design, something generic and expensive and completely wrong. And Meredith realized this was it, the moment, now or never. She stood up, everyone turned, and she began to walk down the aisle. Stop. One word. Meredith's voice rang through the cathedral, silencing 300 guests and a string quartet mid-note. Scarlett froze at the entrance, her face contorting with rage. "Security!" "Let her speak," Tristan said, his eyes never leaving Meredith's. His voice carried authority she'd never heard before. "Everyone, let her speak." Meredith reached the altar, her heart hammering. This was insane. This was social suicide. This was the bravest thing she'd ever done. "I'm sorry," she said directly to Tristan, ignoring everyone else. "I'm sorry for what I said that night. I was scared and hurt, and I reduced something beautiful to something transactional because I didn't know how to protect myself any other way." "Meredith," his voice cracked. "I'm not finished." She pulled out Richard's documents. "Tristan, the merger is a fraud. Devereaux Tech is collapsing. They're billions in debt. Scarlett and Vivian planned this. They're using your name and fortune to save themselves. And when it crashes, you'll take the fall." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Vivian stood from the front pew, her face a mask of fury. "This is slander. Remove this woman immediately." "Is it?" Richard stood, joining Meredith at the altar. "Because I have 6 months of financial records that prove otherwise. Bank statements, emails, everything." He looked at Tristan. "I tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen. You were too busy believing you didn't deserve better." Tristan stared at the documents, then at Scarlett, who'd gone pale. "Is this true?" "Tristan, darling, this is just a misunderstanding. Is it true?" His voice thundered through the cathedral. Scarlett's composure shattered. "What did you expect? You're an ATM with good hair. Yes, we needed your money. Yes, the company is failing, but this marriage would have saved hundreds of jobs, secured both our futures. Built on lies," Tristan finished, his voice cold. "Everything, built on lies." "Oh, don't be so dramatic," Vivian hissed, abandoning pretense. "Your father arranged marriages for business. This is how our world works. You were always meant to be useful, not happy." The cruelty in her voice made Meredith's blood boil. "He's not a tool. He's a human being who deserves to choose his own life." "And what would you know about it?" Vivian's laugh was vicious. "You're nobody, a failed designer with nothing to offer except romantic delusions." "You're wrong." Tristan stepped down from the altar, moving to stand beside Meredith. "She offered me something no one else has in 10 years. Honesty, reality, a chance to be myself instead of what everyone demands I be." He turned to the crowd. "This wedding is off. The merger is cancelled. And Vivienne?" His voice went deadly quiet. "You're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you from the property within the hour." Chaos erupted. Scarlett screamed about lawsuits. Vivian threatened consequences. Guests pulled out phones, filming everything. It was a disaster. It was perfect. Tristan took Meredith's hand and pulled her toward a side door, Richard running interference as they escaped into the rain-soaked streets of Manhattan. They ran 3 blocks before stopping in a deserted doorway, both breathless and soaked and laughing like maniacs. "You stopped my wedding," Tristan said, wonder in his voice. "You're welcome." Meredith was shaking, adrenaline, fear, relief. "I can't believe you did that. The bravest, craziest." He cupped her face in both hands. "I love you. I've loved you since you challenged Vivian at dinner. Since midnight in the library. Since you refused to compromise yourself even when it cost you everything. Tristan, let me finish. I love you, and I don't care that it's fast or impractical or complicated. You make me want to fight, want to choose, want to live instead of just exist." His gray eyes held hers. "So I'm choosing you, if you'll have me." Meredith's heart felt too big for her chest. "I love you too. Even though you're dramatic and trapped and come with the worst future in-laws imaginable. They're fired now. Even better." She smiled through tears. Yes, I'll have you." He kissed her in the rain, and it was nothing like the movies. It was better. It was real. Messy and imperfect, and absolutely right. When they finally pulled apart, Tristan laughed. I just blew up my life on live television. Worth it? Completely. 1 year later, the Castellano Ashford Design Studio opened on a crisp October morning to a line around the block. Meredith stood in the doorway of the converted warehouse, watching customers flood in, still slightly amazed this was real. Nervous, Tristan appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Terrified, she leaned into him. What if they hate everything? Impossible. Your work is brilliant. He kissed her temple. Besides, we're already sold out through next spring. The past year had been chaos. Lawsuits from Vivian, dismissed. Media scrutiny, exhausting. Rebuilding Tristan's company reputation, ongoing. But they'd done it together. Tristan had restructured Ashford Industries, installed Richard as CEO, and created a foundation for small business owners like Meredith. Scarlett had fled to Europe to escape the scandal. Vivian was facing fraud charges. And Meredith? She'd built the studio of her dreams, a collaborative space where established and emerging designers worked together. Tristan had insisted on funding it, and for once, Meredith had let him. Partnership, not charity. Mrs. Ashford, Tristan murmured against her ear, we should probably greet our guests. She smiled at the name. They'd married 6 months ago in Richard's garden, small, intimate, real. Victoria as maid of honor, Richard officiating, and a dress Meredith designed herself at midnight while Tristan watched and made terrible suggestions. In a minute, she turned in his arms. I just want to remember this moment, before it gets crazy. It's already crazy, he laughed. We started a business, got married, and you're wearing my ring. My stepmother predicted we'd crash and burn in 3 months. Spite is an excellent motivator. Is that why you said yes? Spite? I said yes because you make me brave. Meredith kissed him softly. And because I love you. Even when you reorganize my fabric by color instead of type. That was one time. It was last week. They were laughing when Victoria appeared, clipboard in hand. Lovebirds, we have actual work to do. Meredith, your 10 o'clock consultation is here. Tristan, your conference call with Tokyo starts in 5. She's terrifying, Tristan whispered. She's efficient, Meredith corrected. It's why I pay her obscenely well. You pay her with my money. Our money, community property, remember? His smile could have lit the city. I love when you say ours. As the day unfolded, consultations and calls, customers and chaos, Meredith caught glimpses of Tristan across the studio, him laughing with clients, him seriously discussing fabric weights with her team, him belonging in her world as much as she now belonged in his. That evening, after everyone left, they sat on the studio floor surrounded by sketches and sample fabrics, sharing takeout Chinese food. Happy? Tristan asked. Meredith looked around, at the business she'd built, the life she'd chosen, the man she'd fought for. Deliriously. Good. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. Because I have a proposition. Is this a business thing or a weird thing? Definitely weird. He unfolded architectural plans. What if we converted the floor above into a living space? We could live and work in the same building. I know it's unconventional. It's perfect, Meredith interrupted, studying the plans. Tristan Ashford, are you going bohemian on me? Apparently love makes you do crazy things. He pulled her close. Like crash weddings, start businesses, believe in happy endings. Do you? Believe in happy endings? He kissed her, soft and sure. I'm living one. Outside, snow began to fall, the first of the season. And inside, 2 people who'd been trapped in different cages had found something neither expected. Freedom, partnership, and a love worth fighting for. It wasn't practical. It wasn't safe. It wasn't what anyone would have predicted. It was perfectly, impossibly, beautifully theirs. The end.